finally, the last presenter for this section, Professor Uvarov. Professor Uvarova.
Я очень постараюсь побыстрее рассказать. Дело в том, что передо мной как раз выступал Виталий Андреевич, который говорит...
Just before me, Vitaly mentioned the same materials as I wanted to tell about, so I will be short and concise. There are several groups in our institute. I want to present to you the results of a group of material science group and the small enterprise Rapid, which is the producer of the materials that I'm going to tell you about. As we see on this slide, there's a human skeleton. And the functions that reach to up to 40 functions of the human body that are engaged in the process of restoration of bone tissues. Mostly these bone implants are divided in two groups. The implants that do not bear significant physical loads and those that do. What I'm going to tell you in my presentation calcium phosphate ceramics. What is calcium phosphate ceramics? It is prone to adhesion of tissues that surround that material. It can support the process of proliferation and differentiation of the cells and the role of matrix for to build the bone around. And it's also an inducive material which is prone to form the new elements bone, chondrocytes and osteoblasts from the surrounding tissue that are not bone tissue per se. So these are primarily operations, the dentistry, the slides are skipping. These are traumatology, orthopedic surgery, oncology, ophthalmology, and the most important, the biggest advantage of phosphate ceramics is the full guarantee that calcium phosphate ceramics will be absorbed and accepted by the body. And the other thing is that we can create the necessary shape and provide for the necessary functions. In our joint works of the Institute and the small enterprise Rapid, the slides seem to be skipping on their own. So these are various powder materials. You see, I did press it. They are mostly the powder materials, different types of materials. The previous speaker mentioned most of them. I will just tell you that this is a product that we offer. It's a complex compositor that are comprised of various balances of hydroxyapatite and tricalcium phosphate, which is a two-phase composite, tricalcium phosphate and hydroxyapatite, and a couple of other interesting materials, complex compositions doped by silver, and even some of them contain osteotropic microelements. Using the calcium phosphate materials in various bioengineering constructs. First of all, I'd like to say that this is one of the most fashionable developments. The artificial material, which is the basis or the primer, and there are natural components, and the combination of these components gives us the opportunity to obtain various composites from living tissue and non-living tissue. So if we create this compositor, what is important to these composition materials are the base that can absorb live tissue. There are certain structural characteristics, the roughness of the surface that can provide certain absorption characteristics, and the porous structure. The porous structure is necessary for growing of the live tissue into the base. If we talk about calcium phosphate ceramics, the most important its advantage is that it excludes any negative consequences after the operation. This slide shows specific operations, surgeries that were dealing with dental defects. Our materials were used for filling the defects of lower dental bridge, and after a month after this operation, after the lower dental bridge was reinforced, there were implants used in that bridge, and they were proven to be quite successful. These operations were already used with the calcium phosphate ceramics. These materials were used to register a number of certificates that allow to use it in the medical practice. So what are the most serious advantages of this material? The controlled property, porosity, strength, biodegradability. The compatibility with osteoinductive properties, and the use of such materials in various coatings. And plus, of course, the low price and affordability. Another thing that we're working on is how to use calcium phosphate ceramics for delivery of drugs into the pathological zone. We don't do the targeted delivery with the use of special methods, but the calcium phosphate ceramics, due to absorption properties, allows to absorb the necessary antibiotics, and the way we deliver the drugs and certain concomitant substances that will facilitate the medical effect of these drugs. The release of the drugs will occur over time. And right now in our team, we're hard at work studying the absorption characteristics of the ceramics. And of course, we study the time of release of the drugs in order to prolong this release post-operative period. So these are some of our coordinates that you can contact us, and I'm very thankful for your attention. I tried to be short in my presentation. Okay, please, questions. Could you please tell us, we know that tricalcium phosphate, when exposed to pH 5, such as citric acid, can degrade. What is the promise of using such implants in the facial surgery? Yeah, what I was telling you about is composita, which have tricalcium phosphate together with hydroxyapatite. And thanks to this combination of the two materials, we are able to regulate, to adjust the time of degradation. This has a very important meaning when we operate, depending on the age of those who will operate on. You have to either speed up this process or slow it down. And the fact that these composite materials allows us to adjust and vary this time, this is one of the main advantages. There was another question. The antibiotics. If it absorbs antibiotics and absorbs the colors of berries, and so it means porosity, and it's a prerequisite for the destruction. As I said, we absorb antibiotics before the operation, before the surgery, and it is necessary if we want to prolong the action of these drugs. If we cannot say that if they're porous, then they will absorb everything. No, we will take this property and use it for absorbing antibiotics. Okay, one last question. You showed us at the start the skeleton, and you mentioned the strong, and you didn't say anything about strength and resistance. Okay. Depending on what locations the implants are used in, with serious physical load or lighter load, so we can use our materials as a coating for titanium alloys. But where there is no significant physical load, it can be filled entirely in place of defects. Thing is that we have a coffee break.